welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me today for the Graduate Internship Requirements and Documentation Workshop. Thrilled to have a larger crowd with us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ashley Dwyer, and I am the Director of Internships and Career Services here at Rockefeller College of Public Affairs and Policy. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to chat with you guys today about this internship requirement element to your program, as well as the process documentation and some strategies as you go along. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen with our PowerPoint. Bear with me, I'm just trying to get this into presentation mode. Slideshow from beginning. Everyone can see the PowerPoint, hopefully. Great. Okay, so as I mentioned, we'll be discussing the internship requirements element, the whole documentation process, including a handshake tutorial element as well. So hopefully that will be helpful for you. And then if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them at the end, but you're also welcome to put them into the chat, and I'll be happy to take care and address those questions for you. So to kick it off, if you are a MPA student, you are going to be required to complete 350 hours of internship in order to graduate. What's important to note is that this is not for credit. So we will get into this, but this can really occur at any point during your time here as a student, so fall, spring, or summer. So MPA students have to complete 350 hours, and while it's 0 credit, it is something that we track and process and need to have, tracked and processed in order for us to sign off on your graduation for graduation. For MIA students, so international affairs students, you will be required to do 400 hours. For MA students, whether that's political science or, I'm sorry guys, bear with me here. I'm gonna actually stop share and pause recording. Okay. Are you guys seeing the presentation in presentation mode or in PowerPoint mode?
PowerPoint.
Okay, sorry about that. God, I'm sorry for these technical. Okay. Okay, so as I was saying, MPA students and Masters in Public Administration students will be required to do 350 hours of internship in order to graduate. Again, it's a 0 credit situation. It's not affiliated with a class, so it can be a bit confusing, but it is a graduation requirement. It is required in order for us to sign off on your graduation materials. And so we track this information accordingly via Handshake, and we will go over that. And for international affairs students, you'll be required to do 400 hours. MA students, Masters of Arts students, whether it's political science or criminal justice, this is more optional, but it is strongly encouraged. And you can receive academic credit for this process as well. So that's usually completed by connecting with your faculty and finding an affiliated course or opportunity for you to receive that credit. For combined students, whether it's the BA MIA or the BA MPA combo, it's important. This is very important because there's some overlap for combined students in completing the undergraduate coursework at the same time as the graduate coursework. And what's important to note here is that you must be completed with all undergraduate courses in order to have a graduate level internship count as that internship. So if you're taking like 3 graduate courses in 1 undergrad course in spring semester, for example, you can intern somewhere for sure. You can even receive undergraduate credit for that, but you can't count that towards the 350 or 400 hour requirement. You would need to completely finish all undergraduate coursework and your degree before that can be counted. So typically this is counted at no earlier than the start of your fall or your first semester of graduate school fully. Sometimes there's a little flexibility in terms of having that start the summer prior. That's dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So certainly reach out to us for that information. International students, it's just important that you may have specific regulations related to your visa. So I know there are OPT and CPT options for international students, but you are going to want to connect with the International Student Service Scholars Office regarding that to make sure that you're following the right processes, you're attaining the right visas for work authorization at both the internship level and full-time, and that you're completing all the proper documentation and paperwork. It's important to note that students with a GPA below 3.0 may not be eligible to participate in the internship because it is important that you're in good academic standing in order to move forward with the internship piece. So what will your internship look like, right? So your internship needs to be relevant to your field or degree. We do have a certain level of criteria that we adhere to based on the accreditation of NASPA, which is our accrediting body. This criteria is put into place to make sure that you're receiving advanced level competencies and skill sets at the graduate level, and that we're adhering to this accreditation. So some of those internship criteria involve a combination of the following: research and evaluation, written and oral communication skills, data organization, including qualitative, quantitative analysis, program evaluations, policy analysis, constituent relations, teamwork, leadership, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making. So it's very important that you're aware of this criteria at the graduate level, and that when you're considering possible internships for the future, that you're looking at these particular skill sets to say, does this internship that I'm applying for or considering or being offered offer these skill sets at the advanced level for graduate level internships? So this is all outlined in our job and internship handbook as well, which is on our website, which is at the end in our resources page. So, okay. The location of your internship, it does not have to be in Albany. We understand that we have several courses offered remotely. And so now we have students who are based in Albany, of course, but we have students who are not based in Albany. We have students based in New York City and DC and different areas of the country. So we understand that some students will not always be available in the Albany area. So it can be in Albany, of course, but it does not have to be. It can be remote, hybrid, or in person elsewhere too. So that's important to note. So using certain resources in search engines to expand your search to where you need it is important. In terms of timing, it can happen in summer, fall, or spring. Internships are offered year-round by most organizations. We find that summer is typically the most common time frame for students to complete their internship. So typically after their first year, they'll do an internship that summer. And that's partially because it's just what works out the best in terms of, not taking courses or as many courses and having more time to devote and dedicate to the internship. So that's a common time frame, but just know that internships are very much offered in the fall and spring semesters as well. In fact, for MPA students in particular, the legislative session occurs in the spring, so there's tons of spring internship opportunities as well. Typically, the hours can be anywhere from full-time to part-time. We usually recommend that you're doing at least a minimum of 10 to 15 hours per week in order to kind of reach that goal of completing the 350. Typically during the academic year, students are doing part-time hours, right? So we typically see anywhere from like 15 to 25 hours a week during the academic year. However, there are internship opportunities. For example, with the New York State Assembly, that is a full-time internship in the spring semester. So that is certainly an option too. And typically summer internships tend to be more full-time, but they can also be part-time in the summer. It's important to note that, you have to do 350 or 400 hours if you're that MPA or MIA student. However, all of those hours do not need to be completed within one placement or within one, season, summer, for example. So if you do not complete all your internship hours with one internship, you can either extend that internship into the following semester, if that's an option with your employer, where you can continue your hours and complete it over, a longer period of time, or you could pursue a second internship and re-register the second internship for to combine your hours between the two. So though it's really, you have plenty of options in terms of fulfilling those hour requirements. We do ask that students track your internship hours each semester, and we'll get into that. As you can see here, a tip is do not leave this for your last semester, right? That can be a little stressful. We have had students who have done it in their final semester and it's been okay. But if you have the capacity not to, and to do it, you know, to be more proactive and do it sooner, it does two things. It takes the, you know, the pressure off a little bit in terms of fulfilling most, if not all, of those hours. It also opens the door for a second internship or a longer internship opportunity, which will just give you more experience on your resume and increase your candidacy for full-time jobs post-grad. So I typically recommend the first semester is always tricky, obviously. But some students will start as early as, you know, sometimes the first, but usually the second semester. And so I would recommend starting no later than the summer if possible, after your first year. You know, that opens up the door for possible second internship or again, an extended internship into the following semester. Beware of those application deadlines too. Make sure that you're having your materials prepared and, you know, looked at in advance so that you can get it in time for application deadlines. Some employers will review applications on what's called a rolling basis. And so it's important as well for you to, you know, get them in as soon as possible too. Meaning as they're coming in, they're being reviewed. So some not, but it's important to be very aware of those deadlines and to be proactive in getting your application materials reviewed, prepared for submission. And we can help with that. And I'll talk about that at the end. So timeline, kind of an overview of what you should be doing and expecting. So obviously finding an internship is the first step. And there's several resources that you can utilize to do so. To clarify, this is not a presentation on like strategies. I will discuss resources that you can access. This is more the focus of the process and the requirements, but finding that internship is the first step. The second step should be scheduling a meeting with me or our office, typically me in this process, to ensure it meets the program criteria, particularly if you have questions about it. It's important to do that before you accept an offer to make sure it's going to be approved by our office. You don't want to accept an offer and then necessarily have that not be approved. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You could still pursue that internship. It just potentially wouldn't count. So make sure you chat with us with any questions or prior to accepting it. The third step is registering your experience on Handshake, and we'll go over that process as well. The fourth step will be, you know, completing your internship mid-semester evaluations, and the final step, and we'll go over those. The final step will be completing your final evaluations, as well as your signed hours log and your resume too. We'll go over all of these pieces. So like I said, step one, finding your internship and getting approval from our office. So there's, again, I'm not going to go into depth on strategy here in terms of internship search. However, what I'll mention is several resources or recommendations that we have to get started, including accessing our job and internship handbook for a list of websites and resources to search for openings that match your interest. And so on page 3 to 5 of our job and internship handbook, which is included on our website, and I will be sharing this presentation after the fact too with everyone who attended. So you will have the links to all those resources, but there's a full list of general search sites, sector-specific search sites, state-related sites, federal-related sites. So we provide several resources for you to seek out opportunities for internships. And of course, you can always schedule appointments with myself or a member of our staff to talk about job or internship job search strategies as a whole as well. Definitely review our weekly newsletters and also utilize Handshake to your advantage. So if you're not already, you should be opted in to your MPA or MIA or MA listservs so that you are being made aware of all of the, of our newsletters that we send out weekly on Tuesdays. That newsletter is so critical. It's a long newsletter, but we do bookmark it, so we make it easy and accessible for you guys. It's important for you to take a look at that each week because we really target and incorporate not only career-related events, but also job and internship postings that are provided to us from our employer partners and alumni partners seeking to specifically hire Rockefeller students. So at the end of that newsletter is a whole, featured job and internship section, internships, fellowships, job opportunities based on sectors. So we list several postings in there. So very important for you to check that weekly newsletter. And if you're not receiving it, it's probably because you're not opted into the appropriate listserv. So I would definitely opt into that listserv, and information was actually just sent from Diana about that in our Graduate Student Services office. So definitely connect with that office if you're having issues getting connected to the listserv. But Handshake is also not only where you're going to track your internship experience, but it's also an amazing resource for you to seek out internship opportunities. It's really our career management platform. So it's where everything happens. It's where internship and job opportunities are posted. It's where events are posted. It's where you can schedule one-on-one meetings with myself or our staff. It's where you can track and submit your internship experience. So we will have a little Handshake tutorial at the end, but definitely review Handshake and use it to your advantage as well. Make your internship search a priority and be consistent in timing and seeking out opportunities regularly to keep your options open. So it can be easy for this to kind of like fall to the bottom of the priority list when you're a student, because you have lots of other obligations, classes, work, family, personal, of course. But it can be a little bit of a process to attain the internship, right? You have to apply and then interview, and selections are made. That can take time. So you do not want to wait until the last minute of a semester, or even the last minute in general. So make it a priority, right? Revisit this weekly or every other week at the very, outset, to make sure that you're, being consistent and looking at opportunities, not just applying at the beginning of the semester and then the end of the semester. I'm a big proponent in quality over quantity when you're seeking out internships. It's very important that you're applying to positions that are of interest to you, that meet our criteria, that you're qualified for. But with that being said, you don't want to put all your eggs in, 2 or 3 baskets, for example. You want to keep your options open. And so being consistent and revisiting your search every week or every other week or even more frequently is important, because it will open up more internships for you to apply to. So certainly meet with us to talk about that process more, but also to prepare your resume, your cover letter, application materials as a whole, or even conduct interview prep in the process to make sure you put your best foot forward. Right? Make yourself real competitive for that internship, especially if it's one you really want, right? So I'll say too, and I mentioned this in the previous slide, like very important before you accept the internship that you're confirming with our office. So you can either meet with myself, or you can email a detailed position description outlining those duties and skills generally to our office or to me as well. Typically that goes direct to our office, but I'll be happy to address any questions. So step 2, begin your internship and register on a Handshake. Again, I'll have a tutorial at the end. But in terms of registering your internship experience on Handshake, it's important to know that you should register it no later than 2 weeks after starting your internship. We want to be doing this in real time to the best of our ability. So if you're accepting a spring internship, for example, and you started last week, you should be submitting that. Some students submit it in advance, and that's fine. You don't want to be too far in advance. It all has to line up in real time for the most part, but you certainly don't want to be delayed in that process. This whole approval process is a 2-step approval process. The first approval is our office, myself, and the second approval is the internship site supervisor. Okay, so once I approve it, after it's been discussed and reviewed, then it goes on to the site supervisor to approve. From there, you will then receive a welcome email from our main office, with the required documentation and additional details. So they will be sending you a copy of our student and supervisor expectations form, also found on Handshake for you to sign. They'll also send you documentation, including the internship hours log, how to attach documents on Handshake, instructions for that, and they'll provide you with other information that you need to be submitting, including a resume at the conclusion of your internship with your new experience. So you really have this site, bear with me, someone's trying to get into the call here. Okay. So you have the student and supervisor expectation form that you submit immediately. At the conclusion of your internship, you will submit your updated resume with the new experience, as well as your internship hour log that's completed and signed by you and your supervisor. So all this will be communicated to you after the approval process. When you're submitting your internship experience, it's important to include a detailed job description to articulate your day-to-day responsibilities, your skills, competencies, right? And check the accuracy of your supervisor's name and contact information so that it's going to the appropriate people. This helps me, for whatever reason, if we haven't met prior and you feel confident this internship is, going to be approved. It's important for me to know all the information possible in order to approve it. So be very detailed in that job description portion of the internship registration. Okay. This is just what the student and supervisor expectation form will look like. It's an attachment that you will sign and reattach to Handshake. It's just a 2-page document. There's a piece for your expectations and then the supervisor expectations for you to each to review your portion. And then you will simply sign it and date it and reattach it to Handshake to say, this is what I understand the expectations are of this internship from both lenses. Registering your experience, a little bit of a demonstration, and we'll go into that more at the conclusion. But I'm kind of going to go through the steps in the process here. So the next step will be the internship mid-semester evaluations. So the evaluations, there's 2 evaluations, mid and final. And the mid-semester evaluations, it's done, as I'm sure you can expect, in the middle of your experience in the semester. It's automated through the system. You'll be notified by Handshake to complete the evaluation form accordingly. It's completed by you, the student, and the site supervisor. Okay. So while completing your internship, do so with professionalism and acknowledge that you're representing yourself in the university, right? That's important. So, this is an important piece to note too, is that sometimes these evaluations come because you're being notified through Handshake. Sometimes they go to a spam folder. So if you don't see one midway through your experience, you'll want to check that spam folder to make sure. If for whatever reason you still don't find it, you can always reach out to us and we can resend it or directly send it to you. So you can always schedule a meeting with myself to discuss your experience, any concerns, and next steps in this placement too. Step 4, finish your internship and submit final materials. So that includes the final evaluation, the hours log, and the updated resume, as I mentioned. Okay. So I kind of just went over this end of the internship documentation. So I don't want to be repeating myself, but again, you'll be notified through the system, through Handshake, both you and your supervisor, to complete the final evaluation at the conclusion of your internship. Again, if you're not seeing that final evaluation, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be happy to make sure it gets to you, or check your spam folder as well. And then you will be tracking your internship hours through our spreadsheet that we offer to students that helps calculate it for you, and you and your supervisor will sign off on it and then re-upload it to Handshake. At that time, you'll also update your resume with your new experience and re-upload that to Handshake too. If you have any questions or you want to have your resume reviewed before you re-upload it, you can always schedule an appointment with myself, my colleague Joan, or our staff, and we'll be happy to review it for you as well. A document will be provided to you, in your welcome email too, that's, entitled How to Upload Documents via Handshake Instructions. So that will tell you how to upload all this information, obviously. All components need to be completed by the designated due date for the internship hours to be counted towards your graduation requirements. So when I meet with students who are graduating, I check off on everything that's been tracked through Handshake to make sure it's all completed. And if it's not, we need to complete it before we can, move forward with that. So again, any questions or issues, I'm going to sound like repeating myself, but in submitting any of these requirements, do not hesitate to reach out to us for help, so that's what we're here for. I know it's a little bit of a process, but it's important for us to track it, especially with it being 0 credit, but a graduation requirement. This is how we track and process this information. And all of this is to say that this is only going to serve to benefit you in your professional development. making sure you're not only pursuing internships, but making sure you're pursuing internships that give you the skill sets and the competencies needed to succeed post-grad. All of this is to benefit you and to put you in a good position to find the right job post-graduation, one that kind of meets the criteria of this program that puts you in a good place to propel in your career. So that's really what we care about at the end of the day. Obviously, there's so much process to this that we have to ensure we discuss. But it's important that you're pursuing those internships from that standpoint, and that you're really looking at internships that you're interested in, relevant to your field. It has to be relevant to your field. It has to hit on those criteria and those skill sets. Very important that you're also pursuing internships that you're interested in too, that appeal to you, that you're drawn to. So, okay, so continued internship documentation, internship and documentation. So, like I said, you will want to create a new experience each semester. So for each, it's the best way to describe this is for each new internship you receive, you'll have to track it as well on Handshake. Even if you've exceeded the 350 or the 400, we ask you to continue to track it on Handshake so that we can assess it as well. We can help you with anything too. So if you get that first internship in the summer, and you don't quite complete your hours and you get a second internship the following spring, you'll have to register it in the summer and then in the spring. If you get an internship in the summer, you don't quite complete it and you extend that same internship in the fall, you have to register it for summer and then again for fall. Okay. So it's registered for each new internship or each semester for a continued internship. It's the best way to kind of explain it. Okay. And again, we only encourage you. We have several students who far exceed this requirement. I know the hours sound like a lot, but they're actually pretty easily completed depending on the hours in one semester to max. So we have several students who far exceed the requirement. It's only to your benefit to engage in as many internship experiences as possible. There we go. We do offer internship waivers, so I'm going to discuss this. So internship waivers, we do have some students who are working full-time while they're pursuing graduate school. And they may not have the capability as much to complete an internship. So we do offer an internship waiver. This is assessed very thoroughly and specifically to ensure that whatever position you're in meets our criteria as well. So this is a copy of the internship waiver form that you would fill out if you would like to submit an internship waiver for consideration and review. I'm going to get into the next slide because then it mentions there are really two ways to receive an internship waiver. Okay. One is that you have previous significant relevant employment. So that requires a minimum of 2 years of previous full-time work experience in public administration and policy, international affairs, or a field relevant to your degree, right? So it's important that not only that you have 2 years of experience, but that the position is relevant to the program and the competencies. So as an example, if you were like a teacher in a former position in elementary school, unfortunately, that wouldn't qualify likely for the MPA program because it's not relevant to public administration policy or international affairs. We can always have conversations about that if there's concern about that, but that's the first way that you can have your internship waiver approved. The second way is a concurrent full or part-time work experience within the field of public administration or international affairs while earning your degree. Again, that needs to be relevant to public administration policy or international affairs. So concurrent would happen while you're, meaning you don't have 2+ years prior necessarily, but you received a job while you're in the program, either prior to or early on into the program, and you are pursuing the program at the same time. And you want to, excuse me, and you want to complete, you want to submit the internship waiver in place of the internship. That can be done on either significant past or concurrent while it's happening. If it's a concurrent internship waiver and it's approved, it's approved with a contingency, meaning every semester, at the end of the semester, you have to provide proof of employment for that, which usually comes in the form of a letter from your supervisor indicating, that you are currently working in a full-time or part-time capacity from specific dates. Usually comes in the form of letterhead from the organization, in an email format. It can be sent directly to our rockefeller.careers at albany.edu main email, but those are the two ways that you can be eligible to apply and receive potentially an internship waiver. So with the application, you should fill out the waiver form and with a very detailed position description, attach an updated resume with your current role, and meet with me too to discuss it. I typically meet with most students, unless it's very blatantly obvious that it's relevant, but I typically meet with most students to discuss it regardless. And applications are typically reviewed on a rolling basis. And so be patient in the process. We're reviewing them and we will get back to you in a shorter period of time, hopefully within the semester. It's important to note this cannot be submitted or considered in the final semester of your program. And that's because we don't want to come across any issues with regards to graduation or anything of that nature. I will mention, and this can more be discussed in a meeting if necessary. For whatever reason we have a concern with an internship waiver being approved, we can talk about alternate options to still fulfill the requirements through, your current position. And that can all be discussed through a meeting. And I'll also mention too, like, even if you have a full-time job or a part-time concurrent or a full-time concurrent position, sometimes students leave the position midway through the program and may want to consider pursuing an internship still, and that's still very much an option. And we still encourage that. So some important resources before we get into the Handshake tutorial. So this is one of the pages. This is really kind of a handout for our job and internship websites for Rockefeller students. It's also in our job and internship handbook on page 3. As you can see, it outlines general internship websites, federal, New York State related, and then as you continue in the handbook, you'll see there's ones that are, more sector specific to nonprofit, private, industry as well. Even location wise, what are good sites to reference with regards to like opportunities in DC, for example. So some additional resources. So this is our website and our career handbooks, like I mentioned. So you would just access our website and you would then click on the career handbooks link to get to our job and internship handbook, resume, cover letter, networking, interviewing handbooks, all helpful for you. We have a YouTube channel where we record our career workshops similar to this. We updated it actually as recently as like a month ago, so check that out. Like I said, Handshake, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. This is a document it's a 2-page visual document outlining this process of how to register your internship on Handshake, which I'm going to demonstrate now, and I'll actually probably just pull this up. But and then this is apparently I list our website twice, but better twice than not at all. So thank you all. Before we wrap up, I'm going to do the Handshake tutorial. But I can also address some questions after the fact too. I do want to note these are our drop-in office hours. So you can schedule appointments with myself or a member of our staff on Handshake, or you can drop into our office hours, no appointment necessary. So mine this semester are Tuesdays 3 to 4, Zoom or in person, or Fridays 12 to 2, Zoom only. My colleague Joan, who's the internship and career coordinator, hers are on Wednesdays from 2 to 4, Zoom or in person. And then we have 2 wonderful graduate assistants who help us out and are very well trained by us. Leslie offers the office hours. I think she actually just switched these, so I'll note that in the PowerPoint when I send it as a follow-up. They're now Thursdays, actually 11 to 1, Zoom or in person. And Jillian just joined us, so she's going to get trained up. And when she does, she'll offer some office hours as well. And then I just want to kind of note our contact information here. This is our general email and our general phone number, so you can always reach out to us that way. I'm located downtown on the downtown campus in Milne Hall 105A. My colleague Joan Marceau is located in our contact office uptown campus, Humanities B16. So like I said, you can schedule an appointment on Handshake, or you can drop in during office hours. I'm gonna go back to our Handshake link quick so I can pop that open and do a quick demonstration. And of course, once we're done with this demonstration, I will be able to, let me actually get out of here and get out of here. Bear with me. Easier for me to go this way. And pull up a demonstration for you for Handshake. Once I'm done, or for the experience tutorial on Handshake. Once I'm done with this, I'll stop the recording and I'll be happy to address any questions you might have too. Okay, so when you're logged into Handshake, this is what it looks like from your perspective, okay, from a student's perspective. So up here, I'll just mention this is where you can access your profile and documents and other helpful information, settings, etc. Over here, this is where you can access jobs, event information, including career fairs, employer information sessions that we promote, and otherwise, employer information. This is, you can direct message through Handshake, and then this is the button you're going to click on in order to submit your internship for approval. You're going to access this Career Center tab when you log into your Handshake account. I'll mention every student has a Handshake account once they register as a student here. It's created for you through the registrar's office, so it's a single sign-on situation through Handshake. So you'll click on the Career Center tab here, and you'll see this is where you can schedule appointments. But if you kind of go over here, you'll see experiences, track your internship or co-op experiences. So you're going to click on this and you're going to click on submit an experience. Now, when you do that, it's going to pull up a 2-page form in order for you to submit your experience. Again, I just want to reiterate, do not submit this a form. This is typically submitted after you accept a position, and do not submit this form unless you're sure it meets the criteria or you've met with our office to confirm it, right? You don't want to accept a position and then go back on that offer. And that would be a last case scenario, because we are strict on that criteria. We want to make sure that students are receiving graduate level internships. Okay. So some internships can be a little bit more rudimentary, more basic skill sets, transferable skill sets like administrative support, and that wouldn't necessarily qualify, right? Because we need to make sure you're receiving those higher level skill sets in research evaluation, programming, policy, data management, tracking, organization, constituent relations, etc. So, and we understand with international affairs students too, that we're limited in the amount of opportunities we offer locally. There are several nonprofit organizations and other opportunities through the State Department that are still relevant for international affairs students. So there's a little more flexibility with international affairs internships, in that some will still pursue them, some that are still a little bit more public administration based, which is fine as long as you're adhering to those skill sets. But just know for international affairs students, again, you're not limited to Albany, right? You can seek out remote or hybrid or in-person options elsewhere too. And we have several resources for job search too, for international students, internship search, the ones I mentioned on the presentation, but there's some other great resources in our job and internship handbook, Going Global, et cetera, that help you kind of seek out those related opportunities. Okay. So when you click on submit an experience, you're going to complete this 2-page form. Experience template. So as a Rockefeller graduate student, you're going to notice there's 4 options. You are going to specifically select the Rockefeller College graduate internship option. Okay. That's the template that you're utilizing. The term will be whatever term it's applicable to. So let's say spring 2024, for example. You're going to then get into the organization information. You're going to list the name of the organization. So let's say the New York State, division of the budget, for example, you would indicate that here. Okay, location is typically the address, or at least the city and the state. Anything with an asterisk is required. Anything without it isn't, but I would fill out all the fields that you possibly can to give us as much detail as possible. Industry, you would include that specific to your position. So public policy or what have you, nonprofit management. phone number, email for your organization generally, and then you will get into your experience portion, in which case you will say, what is this experience? And you will type in, for example, whatever your title is, maybe it's graduate fellow, maybe it's public policy intern, whatever it might be, you're going to indicate your job title for your experience here, okay? You can indicate the department of the organization if you have that, and you will include the dates of the experience as well, including start and end date if you have that, or a best guess of that. If you have any questions, I would communicate with your employer about that. Experience type will be internship. Employment type will be full-time or part-time, depending on the hours. Technically seasonal could be used for summer, but we typically recommend the part-time or the full-time option. Salary, what are you going to be making on an hourly or stipend basis? Even if it's a stipend, you can incorporate that. You'll want to put in your offer date. Did you accept the offer? Yes. Okay. What was the date? Again, there's some redundancy in this form, but just be as detailed as possible. This part is very important, like the contact information for the internship site supervisor, because they're going to be involved in this process, like I said. So you want to include their email address. On the second page of the form will be more questions regarding the internship site supervisor contact information and details, their name, their job title, their phone, their email, etc. will all be on that second portion of the form. Generally, you want to put the start date for the internship, salary per hour, number of hours per week, your title again, and then on-site, remote, hybrid. We know there's some redundancy in this form. There's only so many ways we can manipulate it. We're working on consolidating that, but be as detailed as possible. It's a 2-page form. It won't take you longer than 5 minutes to complete. This is where you need to be very detailed in describing your internship duties, responsibilities, skills, competencies, everything. So I have received some submissions that are just one sentence. I mean, I typically recommend students, usually if that's the case and I'm not clear on what it is and we haven't met, I need to speak to the student. So be as detailed as possible on that. Once you fill out all the necessary pages, you'll go to the next page, which will incorporate, like I said, site supervisor information, and then you will submit that experience. Once it's submitted, it will go into pending. Again, it will go through that 2-step approval, and you will be notified from me and from the site supervisor. You could always go back in and check on the status of your experiences too. Once you submit a form, you cannot edit it after the fact. We can, but you won't have the ability to go back in and edit it. Once it's submitted, that's submitted. Now, I can edit it if need be, okay? But I say that to say, like, get all the information possible before, right? Before you submit it, okay? I'm going to pull up this document too real quick on my downloads. Bear with me actually here. Sorry, let me actually get out of here for a moment. This is also a really helpful document that will be hyperlinked into the presentation. This is an overview of that exact process I just went over. Career Center, experiences, submit the experience, right? Completing the details of the form, the description, the general, right? So after you completed all the questions, you will then select submit an experience. You will then get a message stating experience was successfully created. Once your experience is created, Handshake will send an email to your site supervisor and myself for approval. And you can always check back on the status of that. So this page as well will also be included, in the presentation links.